Dear students, hello and welcome. Today we will be talking about phenomenological approach to personality. The objectives include to understand the nature of personality, to know about the nature of phenomenological approach to personality, to know about the George Kelly's theory of personal constructs, to know about the Carl Rogers' phenomenological views, and to understand the implications of phenomenological approach to personality. Students, in psychological parlance, personality refers to the enduring characteristics and behavior that comprise a person's unique adjustment to life. It includes an individual's major traits, interests, drives, values, self-concept, abilities and emotional patterns. Terming it differently, personality refers to a person's unique and enduring pattern of thinking, feeling and behaving. Hence, personality signifies something deeper than mere appearances or outward behavior. In fact, human personality is a complex and colorful thing which encompasses nearly every aspect of human experience. Personality, a product of both biology and environment, remains fairly consistent throughout life. It means that personality is the characteristic sets of behaviors, cognitions and emotional patterns that are formed from biological and environmental factors. The trait-cum-type personality theorist H.J. Esnick defines personality as personality is the dynamic organization of a person's character, temperament, intellect and physique, which determines his unique adjustment in the environment. The personality trait theorist Gordon Allport beautifully writes, personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his characteristic thought and behavior. Gordon Allport's definition is considered as most comprehensive definition of personality because it gives due importance to the interaction of psychological and physiological aspects which determine our personality. At the same time, it points out that personality of an individual can change over a period of time and each individual is unique in his personality makeup. Besides, individual's personality is defined as the combination of the relatively enduring traits that influence behavior in a variety of situations. Undoubtedly, personality can change over a lifetime, but one's core personality traits tend to remain relatively consistent during adulthood. Students, now let us understand the nature of phenomenological approach. This perspective highlights the importance of looking through the individual's viewpoint, particularly how they come to understand the world and themselves, that is their self-concept. Terming it differently, the phenomenological approach is concerned with how we experience the world and how we construct our own meanings. The focus is on our sense-making processes, that is how we make sense of the world. It stresses the need to understand how people interpret or perceive the world in order to predict how they will act within it. So, the approach refers to the unique perception by each individual of his or her own world. The individual, as a matter of fact, experiences and perceives own world and reaches and reacts in an individual way. This approach arose as a humanistic protest against the psychodynamic and behaviorist views. Phenomenologically oriented theorists asserted that personality is not merely passively molded by internal motivational or external situational forces that shape what a person becomes. They are of the view that people are active agents in the world and have a measure of control over their environment and their own lives. Phenomenological approach to personality takes human experience and subjectivity as their primary focus. Phenomenological theorists are of the view that obtaining accurate knowledge of another person requires understanding how that person experiences the world. According to them, personal experience constitutes immediate reality. A secondary focus of phenomenological theories is the self. The focus of this approach is on the development of an active self. People develop self concepts and goals that guide their choices and their life course. Hence, understanding personality or person's goals and choices requires attention to how the individual characteristically perceives, thinks, interprets, and experiences or even constructs the personal world. According to the phenomenological view, people are capable of knowing themselves and of being their own best experts. Here, it is self knowledge and self awareness that becomes the route to discovering one's personality and genuine self. Phenomenological approaches to personality are better called as self theories, construct theories, and humanistic theories. These theories tend to reject many of the motivational concepts of dynamic, psychodynamic theories and most of the environmental determinism of behavioral theories. The phenomenological approach to personality is the idea that an individual's conscious experience of their world are more vital than the physical world itself which they inhabit. So, a person is defined by their conscious experience of the world. Phenomenological approach emphasizes the creative, spontaneous, and active nature of human beings. So, the prime aim of this approach is to realize human growth and to fulfill our potential, what Abraham Maslow called self-actualization. In order to achieve this noble aim, Carl Rogers suggests that we must be open to experience and face our true feelings. Phenomenological thinkers have a more optimistic view of human nature than Sigmund Freud, who described man as pleasure-seeking animal. For instance, Abraham Maslow believed that people are inherently good and seek to self-actualize. For humanistic and existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre, man first exists, occurs, arises in the world and is only defined later. It means that a person is having his own ability to make a choice. For them, behavior must be understood in terms of the subjective experience of the individual. If we wish to understand human behavior, we need to understand the person producing the behavior and how the person sees the world. It is only the individual who can explain the meaning of a particular behavior. Most approaches see little value in subjective experiences. Behaviorists assert that what people think or say is irrelevant to the explanation of behavior. They focus on the role of environment. Psychodynamic, on the other hand, assert that individuals cannot explain their behavior because the cause of the behavior is one's unconscious motives. It means that both approaches devalue the significance of subjective experience. So, the explanation of behavior depends not on the person who is behaving, but on the assessment of an observer who may be a researcher or a theorist. For phenomenologists, subjective experience is an important aspect of behavior, and there is no reason to reject these experiences. It is phenomenology that helps us to understand the meaning of people's lived experiences. For a phenomenologist, people are active agents in the world and have a measure of control over their environment and their own lives. Quite contrary to the psychodynamic and behavioristic views, phenomenological oriented theorists argue that personality is neither merely passively molded by internal motivation forces as depicted by psychoanalysis, nor external situational forces as depicted by behaviorists. Instead, they hold that people are active agents in the world and have a measure of control over their environment and their own lives. According to this view, people are considered capable of knowing themselves and of being their own best experts. An individual discovers one's personality and genuine self on the basis of his self-knowledge and self-awareness. Dear students, now let us understand the George Kelly's theory of personal constructs. George Kelly, in his theory of personal constructs, emphasized people's subjective perceptions as the determinants of their behavior and personality. Kelly asserted that people generate constructs and hypotheses about themselves as well as about the world. As a matter of fact, they use these constructs to anticipate, understand, and control events in their lives. In order to understand people, one has to understand their constructs or personal theories. Problems develop when people don't generate workable constructs and fail to test their constructs or hypotheses against the realities of the environment. They find themselves as helpless victims of their life situations. In fact, Kelly's focus on a psychology of personal construct is viewed as a phenomenological approach. Now, let's understand the Kelly's cognitive theory of personality. Kelly's theory is phenomenological because of its focus on the internal frame of reference of the individual. It is described as cognitive because it studies mental events. It is existential because of its emphasis on the individual's freedom to choose. It is humanistic because it focuses on creative powers and ability of people to solve their problems. According to George Kelly, an individual's behavior and thoughts are guided by a set of personal constructs that are used in predicting future events. As a matter of fact, a person's behavior and thinking are channelized by ways he anticipates reality. Now, the psychology of personal construct as given by George Kelly. Students, there is no denying the fact that human beings are thinking animals. The effect of man's intellectual processes on behavior is very much evident, and it has been acknowledged by almost all the personality theorists. Kelly, a practicing clinical psychologist, described the cognitive or knowing aspects of human existence as the dominant feature of personality. In his theory of personal constructs, he viewed a person as a scientist, striving to understand, interpret, anticipate, and control the personal world of experience for the purpose of dealing effectively with it. Kelly's view of human behavior as scientist-like is the hallmark of his theory. For him, people were active reactors to external stimuli, behaving like scientists, inferring on the basis of the past and hypothesizing about the future. His psychological thought has greatly contributed to recent major innovations in cognitive psychology, cognitive personality theory. Since George Kelly explicitly acknowledged that all perceptions of human nature are founded on basic assumptions, he developed his personal constructist theory on the basis of a single philosophical assumption known as constructive alternativism. Now, let us know about the constructive alternativism. George Kelly's major premise was that all humans act like scientists because they attempt to reduce uncertainty by developing theories. It allows them to anticipate future events accurately. According to him, individuals interpret, explain, or predict the events in their lives by utilizing their constructs. For him, a construct is a category of thought that describes how events are similar to each other and yet different from other events. Kelly's theory holds that people anticipate events by the meanings or interpretations that they place on those events. He viewed these interpretations as personal constructs. According to him, all individuals are free to choose, create whatever constructs they choose in their attempts to give meaning to their experiences. This freedom to choose construct is called constructive alternativism, according to Kelly. It means people are free to choose constructs. People are exploring alternative ways to understanding things. As a doctrine, constructive alternativism asserts that all present interpretations of the universe would be changed if people simply saw things differently. In fact, a person's perception of reality is always subject to interpretation. Now, how George Kelly views people as scientists. From his cognitive perspective, Kelly proposed a model of personality based on the analogy of a person as a scientist. The scientist, after studying the human subject, generates working hypotheses about reality with which she or he tries to anticipate and control the events of life. As a matter of fact, the aims of science are to predict, to modify, and to understand events. We can say that the scientist's main goal is to reduce uncertainty. In fact, it is not only the scientist but every person shares these same aims. All people are motivated to anticipate the future and make plans based on expected outcomes. For George Kelly, all humans attempt to reduce uncertainty by developing theories. It definitely allows them to anticipate future events accurately. Individuals do interpret, explain, or predict the events in their lives by utilizing their constructs. Kelly's theory is described as a cognitive approach to the study of personality. It focuses on the processes that enable people to understand how individuals perceive and interpret people and things in their environment. A person uses constructs to interpret his world of experience and to anticipate future events. For Kelly, personality consists of the constructs one uses to anticipate the future events. In order to know someone's personality, it is to know how he or she constructs personal experience. Dear students, now let us understand the views of the American psychologist Carl Rogers about the phenomenological approach to personality. Students, Carl Rogers is regarded as another pioneer of the phenomenological approach who proposed two systems, the organism and the self, or you may call it self concept. For Rogers, the organism is the locus of all experience. The organism is an individual's entire frame of reference and represents the totality of his experience, both conscious and unconscious. According to him, the human organism's phenomenal field includes all experiences available at a given moment, both conscious and unconscious. He is of the opinion that the phenomenal field or self is our subjective reality, all that we are aware of, the field of our experiences, including objects and people and our behaviors, thoughts, images, and ideas like justice, equality, and so on. The self develops from experiences and interactions with the environment. In fact, the self is a central construct in his theory which develops through interactions and with others and involves awareness of being and functioning. The self concept in fact refers to the organized set of characteristics that the individual perceives as peculiar to himself or herself. It shows a tendency towards actualization. According to Carl Rogers, the central force in the human organism is the tendency to actualize itself. It is to move constructively in the direction of fulfillment and enhancement. The actualizing tendency is fundamental to Rogerian theory of personality. For Rogers, it is the most profound truth about man. Carl Rogers asserted that for a person to achieve self-actualization, they must be in a state of congruence. As a matter of fact, the self may be in opposition or in harmony with the organism. According to Rogers, our feelings and experiences and behaviors must be consistent with our self-image. We are more consistent or congruent if our self-image and ideal self are similar or closer to each other. Hence, a person is said to be in a state of incongruence if some of the totality of their experiences are unacceptable to them. Quite contrary to the pessimistic views of human nature put forward by Sigmund Freud, the Viennese physician and psychologist, Rogers provided a more experiential or phenomenological view. This approach believed that reality consisted of objects and events. Phenomena represents our conscious perception of reality. For Carl Rogers, our own experience is our reality in any given moment of time. According to him, all individuals exist in a continually changing world of experience, that is the phenomenal field of which they are the center. Rogerian key elements to understanding personality include the way we perceive ourselves and our world, the need to look at the whole person, the innate positiveness of individuals and the people's conscious experiences. In his opinion, the core of man's nature is essentially positive and he is a trustworthy organism. In fact, Rogers' theory of personality evolved out of his work as a clinical psychologist. His approach to the study of persons is phenomenological and ideographic. Psychoanalytic approach was criticized by him because of its focus on studying only emotional turmoil of human nature. Rogers also rejected behaviorists' view of conditioned responses to stimuli, which consider human beings more than mechanized robots who react to events in preordered ways. Now, implications of the phenomenological approach. Students, the important contribution of phenomenological theory is its focus on personal meaning, health and growth. At the same time, it emphasizes on the uniqueness of individual persons. Phenomenological theorists are advocates of the personality trait known as openness to experience. Phenomenological approaches are primarily interested in focusing on the subjective reality of individual human beings. They propose that self-actualization, authenticity, meaning and spirituality are essential to understanding humans. Such concepts are considered to be legitimate by phenomenology's standards of validity because they appear in qualitative analysis of human subjectivity. Phenomenological psychology's concepts such as self-actualization, authenticity and congruence offer a persuasive depiction of human psychological life. Phenomenological methods of inquiry such as narrative case studies provide rich contextualized information about individual personality. Quite contrary to the psychoanalytic approach, which focuses on how the unconscious part of our mind, of which we are unaware, influences our thoughts, feelings and behavior, the phenomenological approach focuses on how our conscious choices and interpretations of reality lead to creativity, freedom, happiness and a meaningful life. As a matter of fact, the phenomenological method aims to describe, understand and interpret the meanings of experiences of human life. Phenomenological approach to personality asserts that personality is not merely passively molded by internal motivational or external situational forces that shape what a person becomes. According to this approach, people are active agents in the world and have a measure of control over their environmental events and their own lives. It focuses on people's experience of phenomena and thus helps us to understand the meaning of people's lived experience. Dear students, to conclude, we may say that phenomenological approach is based on a paradigm of personal knowledge and subjectivity and emphasizes the importance of personal perspective and interpretation. So, it is crucial for understanding subjective experiences, gaining insights into people's motivations and actions. It focuses on how our conscious choices and interpretations of reality lead to creativity, freedom, happiness, and a meaningful life. According to this view, people are considered capable of knowing themselves and of being their own best experts. An individual discovers one's personality and genuine self on the basis of his self-knowledge and self-awareness. It is self-knowledge and self-awareness that becomes the route to discovering one's personality and genuine self. Dear students, it was all for today. I am hopeful that you might have enjoyed this very session. Thank you.